hoping that I have found something that he likes above. So carry your reach, my friend. We can search into and end. Lord, I know that you love him. So help him understand, Lord. So carry your reach, my friend. We can search into and end. Help him give his heart to Help him give his heart to you. Help him give his heart to Bring his searching to an end. Lord, I know that you love him. So help him understand, Lord. So can you reach my friend? You're the only one who can. So help him give his heart to you. Help him give his heart to you.
Well, we have a treat tonight. Of course, we have one of our own that's been doing a Leader Lose series, and we bless God for Bishop Lady Joyce having a heart to impact us with leadership. And so Rod, of course, he's on his 4th tour now, coming through here. Once a month on Wednesday nights, teaching us about leading and losing, and how to turn ourselves into victors. Amen? And I want to say this as I'm bringing him up. Rod, you guys, how many of you guys get the Chronicle? Or should be getting the Chronicle? Tomorrow, make sure you get a special copy, because the brother that's been teaching us leadership will be in there featured for his 10 years of entrepreneurship. He and his other, come on now, stand to your feet. That's what's up. He will be celebrated with his other partners for 10 years. So what we're getting is not something fresh off paper, but he's put into practice for 10 years. So without further ado, I introduce Rod Brown.
Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? Good, good. Hey, Mother Abbott, how are you? How are you? How are you? All right, thank you. I'm excited to be here tonight. We're going to have a good time tonight, continuing this series. Are there any leaders in the building? Yes. Okay, cool. Well, I want you to look at one that's near you. Look at a leader near you and remind them that they are a leader. Tell them you are a leader. You are worthy of being a leader. You are deserving of being a leader. You are capable of being a leader. Convince them, and I trust you as a leader. All right. Give your neighbor a hand clap. And keep clapping if the leaders of our house, Bishop and Lady Joy, have impacted your life. Keep that hand clap going as leaders. Absolutely. So I'm excited. Tonight is going to get kind of interesting because we're going to discuss a topic that it could get some folks in trouble, but let's hope not. I left that over there. Thank you, Pastor Jason. Or do I have two? No, I just have one. Okay, cool. And so it's going to be good. And before I tell you what we're going to talk about, I have one objective tonight. One objective, and I didn't even write it down. Normally, I write down what my goals are for tonight in terms of accomplishing each night. So I only have one objective, and there is this phenomenon. There's this mystery that I'm going to unravel tonight for most of you. And this phenomenon and this mystery, it happens a lot on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights. And again, it's a phenomenon. It's It's a mystery, and tonight I only have one objective. That's to unravel it, and so that if you've ever experienced this phenomenon, you will now know why it happened and how to combat it. If you've never experienced it, you will know and understand now that it could possibly happen, but you can prevent it from happening. And again, it's a mystery. It's a mystery. It's a phenomenon. And so I'll tell you what that is. And that is, now it involves typically two people, sometimes three, but at least two people, right? And it happens oftentimes when Bishop is ministering. And I'm going to tell you what, okay, it's a mystery. It's almost like a unicorn. We don't know why it happens, but it happens. But I got you. I promise you. I'm going to unravel it. So while Bishop is ministering and he's teaching, right? Again, there's normally two people involved. And so he will say something. He will say a phrase, or he will state, he'll say a sentence. And here's the mystery part. One person will go, "Oh my goodness," and just start making notes. Like, oh, that's revelation. Now here's the second part of the mystery. The person with them will look at him like, "I said that 100 times. It's a mystery. I've said that 400. I know you heard me say that." Now, one person is jumping up and down like that's revelation. Has that ever happened to anybody? Just me? Y'all, anybody being honest? Like, so it's a mystery, but I'm going to unravel that tonight where you got that one person going, "Oh," and even, if you got two or three friends, you got, two girlfriends going, "Girl, you ain't never said that. I have said that before," right? But again, it's a mystery, and we're going to unravel it tonight. Before we get started, before I tell you the topic, we're going to play a quick game. I need everybody to close your eyes, close your eyes, close your eyes, close your eyes. And you got to tell me where I am. Close your eyes, just close your eyes. Yes, I'd like to order a venti caramel macchiato. I also need a grande skinny cinnamon dolce latte. And I like a oatmeal raisin cookie, and could you warm that up? Okay. Where am I? They told me y'all was smart. Okay. All right, one more. I need everybody close your eyes. And this one is a little dated, so you're going to maybe tell your age. So, yes, I need 24 singles. Well, thank you. Cheese on 24, please. I need cheese on 12. And oh, by the way, I need 9 quarters. Cheese on 9 quarters, please. Who can tell me where am I? No. Somebody said it, McDonald's. Somebody said McDonald's. Somebody said that. Thank you, George. George knew I was at McDonald's. Now, how did you know I was at Starbucks? And how did you know, for the two people that knew I was at McDonald's, how did you know I was at McDonald's? And I'll boil it down to one word. It was my vocabulary, right? Starbucks has a specific vocabulary. If you're in there and you listen to the words that are being used, you don't have small, medium, or large, right? You have tall, grande, and venti. That's the vocabulary of Starbucks. So tonight, y'all, we're going to talk about the vocabulary of a leader and how I will know by just listening to you if you are a leader. So we're going to talk about the vocabulary of a leader. What I say and how I say it says it all. There was an unknown senator who had the opportunity to speak at a convention about 12 years ago. He went from obscurity to notoriety with a speech because of the words that came out of his mouth. He went from being a senator in Chicago to ultimately being the president of the United States for 2 terms because of a speech, because of words that came out of his mouth. And that's a testimony to how strong words are. And we know the power of words. And we're going to learn a little bit more about the vocabulary of a leader. We know that words have power. Words have power. Words have power. Purple. I'm looking for purple. Everybody look around. Purple. Just look around. Purple. Look around. Purple. Okay. Look at me. Did anybody see any purple? How many of y'all saw green? There's a lot more green in here than purple. No hands go up. Why? Because I used the word purple. That's just a simple example of how that word at that particular moment had more power than any other color in the crayon box. It was purple. Our words have power. Our words will return some result. The Bible says that God's word will not return void. And oftentimes we attribute that to something positive. But our negative words will return a result. Our positive words will not return unto us void, but our negative words will also return a result. It's a law. And remember we talked about laws? Laws happen. Everything is governed by laws. So it's not just the good words that return without void or without a result. It's also those negative words. So we have to be careful. All of our words. All of our words will increase faith in something. Faith cometh by what? Hearing, right. Read your books out loud if you don't. I do. And my kids go, you never learn how to read silently? But I read them out loud or I listen to them because I want to hear the words. That's where faith comes from. Now, again, it's a law, right? So I said faith in something because if you hear, you're a dummy, you're stupid, you're terrible. I knew you were going to do that. That's awful. You always make mistakes. Faith will be garnered in that as well. So we attribute faith to something positive all the time as well, right? And getting us through situations and circumstances. But the exact same faith in something that's not so positive can happen if we use words that go along with those not so positive things. If I'm constantly in your ear, tell your kids, don't lose my keys. Don't lose my keys. Don't lose my keys. Don't lose my keys. Don't drop that. Don't drop that. Don't drop that. What happens? It's dropped, right? Start thanking them for being responsible with your keys. Thank you for being responsible with my keys. I said the exact same thing, but differently. And I gave it power from a positive perspective. Okay? We're going to watch a 2-hour movie. We're going to watch a 2-hour movie that kind of helps us with this point. We're going to watch a 2-hour movie. It's 2 hours.
did you do to my sign?
I wrote the same, but in different words.
Thanks, love.
Thank you. She said, I wrote the same. I just used what? Different words. So words have power. Words have power. The way we use those words, they have power. A leader's vocabulary, when you speak, when you talk to those that follow you, you're going to do more than just state the obvious. The guy's sign stated the obvious. It said that I'm blind. That's the obvious. Her sign stated so much more. At the same time, it stated the obvious, but it also said, I can't see what you see. I can't experience what you experience. I can't see the wonder of everything you can see. And so what that did was it put those individuals in his place, on the ground, on that cardboard. And when it did that, then what? They poured out more and they gave more. And again, it's just the way those words were used. So you're going to do more than stating the obvious. One of the ways you can get to what the real message is when communicating with those that follow you is asking yourself why at least 5 times. Let's say these flags, for example. Let's say someone said, we have flags hanging in the back of the admin building. Why? We have flags there to represent the many different people that come to this ministry. Well, why? Well, we want to show the different diversity of the people that come to this ministry. Well, why? Well, we believe reaching out to all people from different places, regardless of who they are, what their culture is, where they're from, is important, and that's when we'll see the true blessings and the glory of God. Well, why? Well, it's about winning souls and making disciples of all people. See how we wide our way down to being more than just flags hanging in the back of the sanctuary? So that becomes the real message. So if you walk in and you have a situation or a circumstance where you're leading people, you're leading individuals, and the message that you're trying to get across really isn't resonating, ask yourself why at least 5 times to get down to what the real message is that people can really relate to. Does that make sense? It's going to speak to the cause. When you speak, you're going to speak to the cause. When you talk about situations, circumstances, your goals, your vision, you're going to speak to the cause. So you're going to do more than state the obvious, but you're going to speak to the cause. People will give of themselves to things that they can relate to and the things that they identify as purposes. Right? People give to causes. People, and when I say give, I'm not talking about just financial giving. I'm talking about buying into your system, buying into your leadership, buying into the goals and objectives that you set for the organization. Be it your basketball team that you're coaching, the Boys or Girl Scouts that you're leading, your cell groups. You're going to focus on the cause, okay? And you're going to start with the end in mind. Right? Thank you, son, for being responsible with my keys. I ultimately want him to be responsible. I know I don't want him to lose it, but I'm not going to talk about him losing my keys because I'm using the words that could probably drive him to doing what I don't want him to do. So the end is I want you to be responsible and not lose my keys, so thank you for not losing my keys. I even use this when I pray. When I get on the airplane, I used to pray, don't let this plane crash, da-da-da-da-da-da. I don't do that anymore. My prayer is really simple. God, thank you for a successful takeoff. Thank you for a successful climb. Thank you for a successful cruise. at our altitude, thank you for a successful descent, and thank you for a successful landing. That's my prayer. Because I'm thinking about what I need to happen, right? For me and the pilot, right? So that's the prayer. So focus on, start with the end in mind when you're communicating to whomever you need to communicate that you're leading. A leader's vocabulary is influenced by many different things. The way we say things and what we say is influenced by a whole bunch of stuff. But I boiled it down to about 4 things tonight. The first thing is our mood. How many people say things differently based on your mood? Oh, I'm the only one. Okay, we got 2 people. She said yeah. We got a handful of people that said, see, and what you have to do is you have to control your mood. You have to control your mood. Now, that's easier said than done, especially if you have a teenage son and you're like, what were you thinking? You know, absent of the word bonehead, right? So you have to control your mood. If that's meditating for you, try to control your mood by that way. Here's one way to control your mood is not respond when you're moody. Not respond, and you know when you're moody. Does everybody know when they're moody? Yes, if we can be honest. Yeah, not respond when you're moody and acknowledge to your staff, acknowledge to your boyfriend, your spouse, whomever, now is just not a good time, right? Or if you know, you're waiting for somebody to get back to the office, or you're waiting for somebody to get back home, or you're waiting for somebody to get to this meeting, right? And you've taken all day to prepare, right? And you're ready. As soon as they walk in, you're going to get them. They haven't had a chance to prepare. So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to defend, right? And so that probably won't be a positive exchange of words because they didn't have the opportunity to prepare. So you might want to say, let's have a conversation about this situation tomorrow because it's been troubling, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. That gives them time to prepare. That gives you time to change your mood and bring it down a little bit. And that's not for everybody. Just I think it was me and you that said our moods. Yeah. All right. A leader's vocabulary is also influenced by your attitude. Have an attitude of ownership. And I recently, I was in Louisiana, and I taught this to my staff in Louisiana. And I told them basically, the rest of this year, I want you to have an attitude of ownership, meaning whatever you're responsible for in this organization, it's yours. Treat it like it's yours. Take care of it like it's yours. Come up with ideas like it's yours. Grow it like it's yours. Be accountable for it like it's yours. When we have an attitude of ownership in situations and circumstances, in organizations, right, which means also owning our responsibility in that situation and circumstance, things become different. You know how you take care of things that belong to you, right? So now, whatever it is, if you're a cell leader, own your cell group. I told my staff, I said, this is your building that we're in. This is and I pointed to the clinical director. This is your clinical director. The people you take care of, those are your patients. Run your business like that and take care of it. So have an attitude of ownership. So as leaders, we're going to have an attitude of ownership when it comes to our vocabulary. A leader's vocabulary is also influenced by our knowledge. Things that we don't know a whole lot about, we are afraid of. So how do we get more knowledge? Well, we get it from someone else or we go experience it. It's hard for you to lead someone when you don't understand what they're going through. It's very difficult for you because you can't relate to them saying, oh, it's hot out here when you don't work outside. You can't relate to that unless you do what? Go work outside with them a day. Right? So we have to, our vocabularies when we speak to those that follow us is influenced by our knowledge or our lack of knowledge. And we know what happens when we have a lack of knowledge, right? We perish. So we want to do what we can to gain knowledge. So that's on you. You can read books. You can talk to people who've done it. You know, if you're coaching, you can talk to people who've done it. You can read about it. You can actually go do it. You can experience it. Experience is the best way to gain knowledge, okay? So again, our vocabulary is influenced by our knowledge and knowing your vision and what will move it forward and what won't move your vision forward. But you have to have knowledge of it, okay? And then the last thing that I want to talk about in terms of our vocabulary being influenced is your heart. You have to have a heart for whatever it is that you're leading. And you will know by the words that come out of your mouth where those words come from, right? Because if it's in our heart, it's going to do what? It's going to come out in our mouth, right? And you've heard the saying, you know that by heart. You know, some of you know songs by heart. You know speeches by heart. What? It got into your heart. Maya Angelou said that words are things. They get into the carpet. They get into the wallpaper. They get into fabric. And they eventually get into you, right? And so they're going to go to your heart. And so if someone has a specific vocabulary that is not positive and not constructive and not adding, it's coming from the heart. And believe them, because it's coming from the heart. If it's in your heart, it's going to come out. So I needed something to help me illustrate this. And there's a great story in Matthew, right? Great story in Matthew. Matthew 25, and we're going to start with 14, and we're going to go through 29. And it's a story of the talents. Everybody familiar with that story? You had a master, and it's important to just kind of point out he had servants. And it's important to understand that back in the day, servants got paid. So they weren't slaves. There's a difference between slaves and servants back then. So these were hired hands. And there's some other things that kind of tips us off that they were hired hands as well. But we're going to start in verse 14 where it says, "For it's like a man who was about to take a long journey, and he called his servants together, and he entrusted them with his property. To one he gave 5 talents." And there's so much to teach in this, but for the sake of time, we're just going to focus on the point of having an attitude of ownership and the other things that I talked about that influences our vocabulary. To one, he gave 5 talents, probably about $5,000. And this is coming from the Amplified. Okay, to another, 2, and to another 1. So he had 3 servants, right? So one got 5 talents, right? One got 2 talents, and one got 1 talent. And it was given to them based on their ability. So you got 3 dudes. Each one of them got talents based on their ability. Cool thing is, next year or the year after that, they could have gotten more because they could have, increased their ability. I used to think that, there's certain people on the planet that are 5 talent people. There's certain people on the planet that are 2 talent people. There's certain people on the planet that are 1 talent people. No, because it clearly says they got talents based on their ability. So the next year they can, increase their ability to do what? Get more talents, right? So verse 16. He who had received the 5 talents, he went at once, and he traded with them, and he gained 5 talents more. And these words are really important. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he gained 5 talents more. Verse 17 says, "And likewise, he who had received the 2 talents, he also gained 2 talents more." So those 2 guys, they went and they traded. They went and they invested, and we're going to talk about who they invested with, and they doubled what the master had entrusted with them, right? So verse 18 says, "But he who had received the 1 talent, he went and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money." Now, what I want to point out here is the first 2 had kind of an attitude of ownership. What they were given, they said, okay, I'm entrusted with this. This is mine. I'm going to run to town, and I'm going to trade this money. The third guy said, it says that he hid his master's money. So he didn't have an attitude of what? Ownership. He did not, because he hid his master's money. He didn't take the money that he was entrusted with, and he didn't go to town and do what the other 2 did. So now, after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. Verse 20 says, And it had to be a long time. Let me tell you why. Because back in the day, it's going to talk about going to the bankers, right? So the bank back then wasn't like banks now. Back then, the banker was like the loan shark. It was like the dude that had money that could make things happen. So if you went to town to see a banker, you went to see John. John Mann is sitting on high, waiting for you to come to borrow money from him or to bring him money that he can loan that didn't belong to him to get usury. And you'll look, if you do some research, you'll see the Bible talks about usury, which was interest. And that interest then was somewhere between 20 and 40%. So in order to double the money, even at 20%, it took about 3.5 years. So the master was gone for a little while, right? He was gone for a little while at 20%. So where are we? Verse 21, his master said unto him, okay, wait a minute. Verse 20, and he who had received the 5 talents came and brought him 5 more, saying, Master, you entrusted me 5 talents. See, here I have gained 5 talents more. You entrusted me 5 talents. You gave me these 5 talents, and I did what? I gained 5 more. His master said to him, well done, you upright, honorable, admirable, and faithful servant. You have been faithful and trustworthy over a little. I will put you in charge of much. Again, this is a guy, the servant, he was an employee. He wasn't a slave. He was an employee. Because that tells me slaves weren't put in charge of more, right? So this guy was a servant. He was an employee. So he put him in charge he gave him more responsibility. He said, enter into and share the joy, the delight, the blessedness which your master enjoys. So come on over here. You did well. Come over here. Get a big piece of chicken. Watch the flat screen with me, right? That's what he said. So he said, come enjoy what I enjoy. And he also, okay, verse 22, and he also who had the 2 talents came forward saying, Master, you entrusted 2 talents to me. Here I have gained 2 more talents. So he pretty much did the same thing. You entrusted to who? To me, right? So he basically said, I took on the responsibility. Here we go. 23 says, his master said unto him the exact same thing. Well done, you upright, honorable, faithful servant. You have been faithful and trustworthy. You know what? I'm going to put you in charge of much as well. Enter into and share the joy, the light of blessedness, which your master enjoys. Come on over here, get a big piece of chicken with me. Watch the flat screen. That's what he said. He did say that. He said that in the Bible. Verse 24. Now, let's check out the third guy. Verse 24, he said, he who received the 1 talent, he also came forward. It's his turn to speak. So he said, Master, and when I read this, I know you to be harsh and a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you had not winnowed the grain. So I was afraid. So does this guy have a lot of knowledge? Because we just talked about if you got knowledge, typically you're not afraid, right? So he didn't have knowledge. But he's communicating like he didn't have knowledge. So his vocabulary is in line with where he was relative to his knowledge. And I went and I hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is your own. So he clearly believes that the master gave him his money and he never took ownership of that money. And he ended up doing what? Burying it in the ground. But his master answered him. And what was interesting, let me go back for a quick second. And my great-grandmother used to say this about me, because he said in verse 24, I know you to be harsh and a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you had not winnowed. So I was afraid, and I went and I hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is your own. My great-grandmother used to say pretty much what this guy said. He said, but his master answered him, you wicked and lazy and idle servant, did you indeed know that I reap where I have not sowed and gather grain where I have not winnowed? Pretty much, my great-grandmother used to have this saying, and I didn't understand what it meant for a long time. She said, boy, you know so much you don't know nothing. You know so much you don't know nothing. Meaning I know a little bit about whatever I knew, but and you know, all we know is what? What we know. That's where it stops. Everybody in here has a different level of knowing because all we know is what we know. And I thought about my great-grandmother. in that verse because he basically said the same. So you know so much. Why didn't you know? Then verse 27, then you should have invested my money with the bankers. That's John Mann. He should have taken that money to John because John's the loan shark. John is lending money to everybody. He can't lend money. If John is Jewish, he can't lend money to other Jews because the Bible clearly says I can't charge usury to my people. But anybody else, John hit him over the head. 20, 30, 40% a pop. And if Mother Effie had money extra, she would go to John and say, hey, John, take this money and lend it out for us. And if we get 40%, you know, John probably gave Mother Effie 10 and he kept 30. But that's the banker they're talking about. It's not like the traditional bank, okay? He said, you knew so much, then you should have invested my money with the bankers at my coming, and I would have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent away from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. So again, more evidence that he gave it to the one that had 10 talents. Slaves didn't get any money. They didn't get stuff. So these were servants, paid servants. 29, for to everyone who has will more be given. For everyone who has will more be given. And he will be furnished richly so that he will have an abundance. So you hear the saying, the rich keep getting richer? Not because they're rich, but because they do the things necessary to get them rich, right? They do the things that are necessary, right? Like take money to John. Don't y'all take no money to John because I said that. So for to everyone who has will more be given, and he will be furnished richly so that he will have an abundance. But from the one who does not have, even what he does have will be taken away. So these guys had, the first two guys, they had an attitude of ownership. They had good moods about it. The last guy was like, you know, you reap where you don't sow, you're this, you're that. He had a bad attitude, right? He was in a bad mood. He didn't have a whole lot of knowledge because he was fearful, right? And think about it, a servant going to the city to meet a guy like John. That took some courage probably, right? Because he's a servant, he's a hired hand. He's going to meet a guy that's wealthy and in the city. And so that's two different classes of people, the wealthy guy versus the servant, but they did it. Right? So they had courage. Apparently they had knowledge to do it, and they treated it like his own. It's almost like if I'm going to Korea, and I'm going to be gone for, 2 years, but I want my car. I can't take it to Korea, so I'm going to say, Tommy, here's my car. Take care of my car for the next 2 years. When I get back, I want my car, Tommy. But while I'm gone, here you go. So Tommy's downtown Winston-Salem, and he double parks the car. The police comes, walks into the building where the car is double parked and said, whose car is this out here? What does Tommy say? Okay, Jack. It's Jack, not Tommy. See, Tommy done threw me under the bus like he probably would. So Jack says, that's my car. Now, is it really Jack's car? But he did what? He took ownership of it. He's responsible for it. As leaders, that's how we have to be in the organizations or wherever we are being placed or where we've been placed as a leader. That's not Jack's car. Jack says, yeah, that's my car. But it's not really his. But he's going to take ownership of it. He's going to go move it. He's going to put oil in it. He's going to take care of it. He's going to have an attitude of ownership about that car. Okay? Ways to improve what I say and how I say it. This isn't for y'all. This is for the other group because y'all don't need improvement. Use your power for good. Use your power for good. We know that words are powerful. We know that the way that we use words are very, very powerful. But we have to use that power for good. And if I focus on using that power for good, then I'll be a much more effective leader. If I beat people down with my words, which I can do, then I won't be an effective leader. And I want to be an effective leader. So use my powers for good. Schedule conversations. I said that earlier, kind of jumped the gun a little bit. Schedule a conversation. If you know now is not the time to have the conversation because what's going on inside of you right now, it's not good, schedule the conversation. Let's have that conversation 2 days from now. 2 days from now, you're going to bring it down. You're going to be a little bit more calm. You're giving the person time to prepare their argument, right? So schedule a conversation. It sounds kind of ridiculous, but let's not have this conversation right now. Can we have this conversation tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock, right? So this is one of the ways that I can improve what I say and how I say it. Rehearse the conversation. Now, this sounds kind of crazy, but rehearse the conversation. And you want to rehearse the conversation simply because if you have an idea of what might be said, you can respond positively because you've already practiced your response. It's like when I get up here, I've already said this in my car. I've already said this stuff in my living room. I've already practiced it, right? So you can practice or rehearse those conversations that might not be, the warm and fuzzy conversations that you have. So you can rehearse those conversations. And again, we're talking about how can I say stuff better? How can I use my words better? How can my vocabulary be better? Right. Redirect your conversation to what you want to happen versus talking about all the bad stuff that's going on right now. This situation is terrible. You did this. We did this. We're not doing this. Let's redirect that conversation to what we want the outcomes to be, right? That stuff is much more positive. So if we want to have 4 more buildings on this campus, that's what we want, and let's back into that. Let's have conversations that back into those 4 more buildings. Or if we want to serve 100,000 people in this city, let's have conversations about how we serve 100,000 people, not how many we're not serving right now. We want to serve 100,000. Let's have conversations about that, okay? Let's redirect the conversations to what we want to happen. This is very important. When you scold, show grace to the same witnesses. What do you mean by that, Rod? You ever had a conversation with someone in front of someone else? The other teammates, classmates, the kids, siblings, and Tommy, you're this, you're this, you're this, I'm scolding, you're this, you're this, you're this, right? And then everybody hears me scold Tommy. But then 2 hours later, I call Tommy, and I say, Tommy, you know what? I was wrong. I'm sorry. I apologize. I shouldn't have did that. So I showed him the grace and the apology in silence and in secret. But I scolded him in public. Now, the residue from the scold in public is still there. But you don't benefit from the grace that I showed him because you never saw that. So if it's in front of the staff, if it's in front of, now unless it's something personal, of course, but if it's in front of a staff, if it's in front of the kids, if it's in front of the teammates, you're going to come back and you're going to show that grace in front of them as well. So I can eliminate, I eliminated the residue with him. I got it right with him, but I didn't with y'all. I did a disservice to everybody else on the team. I did a disservice to everybody else in the organization because all you remember is me coming down on Tommy. You don't see when I said, you know what, I was wrong. I apologize. I shouldn't have came at you that way. I used the wrong words. That helps him, but everybody else is walking around like, Rod was, ooh, you said, ooh. And you know how he thinks about Tommy? And then that's residue that might could, get off on you as well, right? So if I do that in public, I need to correct that in public, okay? To benefit the witnesses. Please and thank you still works. I promise you. Please and thank you still works. Please and thank you still works. Use please, use thank you. Use thank you when people don't expect you to say thank you. Thank people you don't know, not just the people that you know and the people that you thank everyone. It will change the way you feel inside. It will change your vocabulary overall, and it will make you a more effective leader. And that's it.